social media pro here. Yeah, we'll go.
Yeah. When it comes to social. Should we say clunky? I'm a bit clunky when it comes to social.
You're the boss, you're fine.
All right, we're good?
We're live on everything.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Hey, today, very excited. I'm with Adam Hudson. Adam Hudson is the premier foremost guy on training people on Amazon, particularly e-commerce platforms. By his own mission, he's a serial entrepreneur, owned a stack of businesses and through his lifetime as a guy, so it's always great to catch up with Adam. He's the author of the book Prime, which is a guide to how to build an amazing business on Amazon. So it's a great book there, and he's also the founder of Uspired and Reliable Education. Reliable Education Company. We'll go into those a bit both shortly, but he's also one of Australia's foremost speakers on the Australian speaking circuit and globally. He has shared the stage with some of the greatest speakers of our time. So shared the stage with Tony Robbins, Robert Kiyosaki,
Grant
Cardone, Elena Cardone, Gary Vee, all of them.
Yeah.
And you can see, you won't see, we'll take some pictures at the end, but there's photos of all those people. And there's probably not that many people here in Australia that can say that. So that's why I say, hey, from my perspective, you would be right up there in terms of speakers from an Australian standpoint. So hey, it's my great pleasure to be here at the Reliable Education headquarters, which are great, by the way.
Yeah, they're cool, right?
Are fantastic.
When people come in, they're always surprised.
Yeah. It's a great setup here, and so thanks for having us. I think this year, this 2020 has been an odd year for a lot of people, but actually for me, I'm very grateful for what 2020 has brought, because actually we've had the chance to catch up a few times in 2020, which in a normal year, that probably wouldn't happen. We'd be around the world speaking and doing things with different businesses around the world. I'd be around the world buying different businesses, and so our ability to catch up this year has been quite unique. So I'm thankful for COVID and what that brought, the ability for us to catch up and get to know each other a bit more. So before we get into, I guess reliable education, Amazon, e-commerce, and all that, I really want to dive into the backstory. Adam growing up, how did Adam get into, owning businesses, building businesses, being an entrepreneur? What was growing up for Adam like? You're a Brisbane boy originally?
Yeah, so I grew up in Canberra actually,
Right.
and I grew up to working class parents.
Yep.
So my mum and dad, a bit of an old-fashioned family. Mum raised the boys, me and my two brothers, and dad did the work. Well, that sort of implies that raising us three wasn't work, but I'm sure it was a lot of work. And I think my initial motivation was, it wasn't positive actually. Although I had a great upbringing, I still remember when I was about 14 or so years old, I had a big argument with my dad over something. He said, you don't like it, you pay your own bills one day and then you live under your own house sort of thing.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's my motivation. I'm going to make more money than my dad. That was my initial thing. But I've always been interested in, and that was just my aim from a great childhood. But I've always been interested in it. From the first time I heard what an entrepreneur was, I sort of felt it inside. That's what I want to do. I want to chart my own course. I want to make my own money. So I started working with goals. I was cutting lawns, delivering newspapers, pretty much anything to turn a dollar as early as I could. And
So this is kind of from 14 on?
Yeah, even as young as 12. I think I was going around the neighbourhood with my dad's mower, and mum gave me a washing bucket to wash people's cars on my lawn. That all stopped with ground snow chasing me off the front porch of someone's home. But no, and I worked as an auctioneer holder. When I was a kid, I used to hold items up at the local auctioneer, and then at the end of the day, my shoulder was wrecked on getting money. So I've always just been interested in making my own money, just very early on.
Yeah, right. And was there mentors along the way there, or was it purely just proving dad wrong, which was the big driver? Was there aspirational things that you saw? I'm just going back like the my life. That's always looking at guys that I've worked for, own their own businesses. From a very young age, I can see these guys that had a bit more. Was there any of that? Was there mentors?
So I was in a church. So I brought up in church, and until I was 21, I was a church person. And there was one guy in the church who had money. I knew he had money because he had a red Porsche. And I didn't know anybody else who had any money. He had a red Porsche, and when the Lexuses first came out, he got a brand new Lexus, and that whole church was like, oh my goodness, like, look at this guy, he's crushing it. Yeah. And then I was fortunate that not through the church, but somebody else in my life introduced me to Amway when I was, I think 16, 17, maybe 17, 18, something. And nobody ever talked to me about being in business and anything. It's the first business conversation I had. And so I went to an Amway meeting, they drew a circle, showed a plan, and I thought this network marketing, and they said, you've got to join the book club. So I started reading, they put the Magic of Being Marketing, which was the first book I ever read by Dr. David and Schwartz. And it was the first time I read a personal growth book that told me that I had control over the destiny of my own life, that I could set goals. Nobody ever talked to me about setting goals or thinking positive. I didn't know what that meant. And I was like, this is awesome. I've been reading it. Then I discovered there's this whole genre of these kinds of books. And I just, for the first time ever, was interested in reading. So I read The Richest Man in Babylon, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins, and I got tapes of Tony Robbins. So my mentors were books and audio tapes. And then I took up a direct sales job. We used to drive us out to the suburbs of Brisbane and listen to Zig Ziglar in the back of the van. Get us all pumped up. And we try and sell vacuum cleaners to people already have vacuum.
So that's what it was, vacuum cleaners? For me, it was photocopiers.
Photocopiers, yeah, vacuum cleaners. They used to sell vacuum cleaners door to door, cold call.
Yeah.
And it was some of the best training ever on how to influence people, and how to sell, and what makes people react a certain way. And, so it was a really, I got involved in personal growth very early on.
So really, probably some of these books were actually as big a mentor as anyone else external.
100%. My first actual person that I met was aside from the guy in church, he wasn't a great mentor, but the Jim Rohn came to the Pacific Pines here in the Gold Coast, and I had no money. And the lady selling tickets, it was $2,500 back then, which I thought 25 years ago. And so I put it on a layaway fund, and there was no afterpay, and I paid her off. And she said, Adam, I believe you. You've got to be in this room. You've got to be in this room. And I thought she was coming to push this out person. She ended up being a dear friend. I don't know, she passed away now, but she let me pay it off over 6 months. I paid this thing off. And I went there, and it changed my life. Like I watched Jim Rohn, and I watched this audience, maybe 2,000 people, and I was like blown away.
And hack lines.
Oh, hack lines. And what I learned was just incredible about living a quality life. And he was this guy with I think he was with 500 million. And he just sort of got me thinking about life in a completely different way. Like it was something, nobody ever sort of said that you could influence your life and control a plan and set a goal and achieve it. And that was a game changer.
How important do you think it is, like you've got that information getting fed in, but you were in a direct selling role where I'm assuming that you however many vacuum cleaners you sold, you were increasing your income.
Yes.
For me, as I said, it was photocopiers, and I was commissioning photocopy salesman for 4 years, my early 20s. And I just wonder, how important do you think the environment where you can go and change that? If you get that information that you're in a fixed salary employee type, typical employee type role, you've got that information coming in, but maybe sort of hindered because you can't do so much. How important is the environment you're in when you're getting that information?
It's critical, because otherwise you can't really do much with it. And that's why sales or being in your own business, you have a vehicle that you've got steering all your hands. And without that, you can't. And so I think putting yourself in a role that rewards performance, people are so much more talented and strong than they think they are, but they never get to find out because they're in such a safe environment that they need to test it. It's the old saying, it's just a comfort zone, and that's where the magic happens. You've got to do safe environment.
For sure, super important. So from there through to getting into your own businesses, I took a couple of onwards.
2010.
So there must have been a growth period there where you were building that business.
Yes.
So what did that journey look like there through from selling vacuum cleaners through taking a company public? What was the learnings through there? What were the businesses through there? And where did e-commerce start?
Yeah, I had a lot of business. Probably like you. I mean, people don't know this, but a lot of people don't know. I owned a hairdressing salon. I owned a flight simulator in Los Angeles, like a 747 flight simulator. I owned an animation company. I've currently got 3 software companies. I've owned all kinds of stuff. I've done 3 or 4 network marketing things when I was super young because they were cheap to get into. Like you pay $100 for a group of people. Not a great business model in my opinion. Very hard to sustain. But so I did everything personal. Right in the early days was network marketing because it was easily accessible. my first step outside of that was selling personal development courses. So success courses like the ones that Jim Rohn sold for an American company called Delphin, way back.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah.
This is
I
going
think I recalled that from you.
Yeah, Delphin, I picked up the Rock Report, which is a magazine for rich people basically, and it's got these ridiculous planes and things. And it's American.
All good stuff.
Yeah, all the really expensive stuff.
Yeah.
And there's this little ad in there, it's from America. They used to have like 2 copies in the that you see. That's all they had when I buy ones like this here. There's a little ad in the back by a guy in Canada, his name was Phil Ross, and it said, sell personal development courses, be in the success industry. So I called Canada, and I was calling for a public phone box, and I've never called Canada in my life, you know. I rang up and he said, you know, I'll work with you if you want to do it. It's $2,000, and then you sell these programs, and you get to keep $1,600 for $2,000 you can sell. And I was like, all right. So then I put ads in the local West newspapers across Brisbane with a beeper number that used to say, call me if you want to get into business. And I was working at a picture framing shop in Toowoomba Shopping Centre in Brisbane. And we used to call the beeper number and say, hello, welcome to Adam Hudson's office. And I used to call it just to get my own office. And on my lunch break, I'd run out and I'd call them back and say, sorry, I'm so busy at the moment. There's the only chance. Like, hey, how are you? Great, well, look, here's the basics. I've got a meeting at my home on Wednesday or Thursday night. Like, this is before webinars. And people used to literally come to my home and we'd sit around in the lounge room and I'd have, start off with 5 people there and then they would increase it to 10 or 20. And Phil used to get up from Canada at 2 or 3 in the morning to be live on these calls. And I'd pick up the phone at a certain point in the presentation and say, my sponsor Phil's on. And then Phil would say, pass the phone to the first person in the year and say, this is Nick. And Nick's from Browns Plains. And you'd say, how you going, Nick? And you'd be like, oh, you say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you're not interested, 10 being you're in, what are you? And you'd say a 3 or 2 or something. He'd say, Nick, that's fantastic. What got you that high? And then he'd say, what do I need to answer to get to
It's a great training ground, though, right?
Oh, amazing. And he'd just sit there and ask you, what other questions do you want? Where are you now? Who are you before? What else do you want? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And he'd literally close every single person. And then a couple would fall over during the week. But I was just like, this is a guy just turning people from the no to a yes on the other side of the world on this long distance call. And that business made me a millionaire by the time I was 23. So, and I just sold these courses, and I had a second course which was $8,000, and I got 6 of it if I sold one. I built out 1,500 people across the country working in my organisation. So that was a great training. I lost all the time. I didn't lose it. I know what
it just wasn't in your control anymore. But so, and that's a great point there. So, I mean, sales and marketing, you know, hey, if you've seen any of probably either of our stuff, but you know, sales and marketing is such an important part of any business. If you're there, if you own a business currently, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a cafe, a hairdresser, or whatever, the sales and marketing aspect, and it's something I really respect what you do. What you do with your sales and marketing is fantastic. But then behind that, to Adam's point, is the financial side of it, knowing what to do with it. You know, for me, it was always having property in the background there as it's coming in. Then the properties, I was growing up, 12, 13, 14, 15, like all the people I was looking at that I was working for at that time at that age, you know, property was always a theme in the background, not on a big scale, but you know, it's just a small town in New Zealand that I would see, but from where I was, the property was always a theme in the background. So that's why, you know, going at 16, I got my first place, and it was an investment property. And so, you know, it was always making sure that you know where your money's coming from, and then what are you doing to your point at the back end. But the great news is there's always plenty more of it out there. You can always make it in.
Oh, 100%. That once you understand marketing, you literally are getting the income you make. And that's the game, is make money in a high-risk environment of business and yank it into the low-risk environment of property. Now, property could be blue chip shares, whatever you like, but I personally like commercial property. If you find your thing, the name of the game is don't lose, because there's going to come a time when you do lose your energy in business. And by the time you want to have enough financial energy invested in property that it doesn't matter anymore, that you can live off your dividends.
That's great. So where did the e-commerce start to feature? You know, was there a, you know, what drew you towards Amazon? You're most well known for Amazon right now. You know, that would be pretty commonplace knowledge, I think. So what sort of steered you towards the Amazon platform? Where did that connection start to come?
Yeah, so I moved to the United States in 2011. I took my company public here, which is a finance company. and in 2008, literally 3 or 4 months before the lockdown. So I was one day at this 8-figure equity, and the next day, no. And I was escrowed, so I couldn't even sell my nut. So I ended up working through till 2013 to save the company basically. And then I found a high net worth investor to take me out of my position in the public company, which I did, made a little bit of money, and I said, I've done with Australia for a long time in the US. I started an animation company in Hollywood, and when I was there, I started to see all these, I was there for 5 years, and I saw Amazon boxes outside of every second door when I get home from work every day, and into my home, because I lived in an apartment complex on the edge of Beverly Hills, right near Four Seasons. And I thought that was so cool. So I thought my building's either got, best reading population of America in there.
Yes.
Just as if they sell everything, not just books. And I had a look, and I started to research, and I saw Amazon was just going like this. And then I thought e-commerce makes so much sense. Like people buy from Amazon, they trust Amazon, the boxes land at the door the same the next day. And I just thought, I know I'm going to want to move out to Australia and selling the physical product, because in animation I was selling time.
Yeah.
So when somebody wrote out a check for our services, they're hiring me, or a script writer, or a voice actor, or an animator. Yeah, so it's always time for money. And so I thought, if I could sell a physical product like these glasses and set it up on a platform like Amazon where all the fulfillment was done by them, it goes to their warehouses, I could be living in Australia and be selling these glasses even when I leave America.
Yeah.
And I just got to keep them in stock. That idea really captured me.
This is 2011, right?
2011, I went live in early 2012, my first product. So,
Yeah.
and ended up growing that first product. The first 5 months, I didn't know what I was doing. I figured it out as a coach. In the 6th month, I turned it around with $15,000 US in sales, which is about 20 something Australian dollars. I remember it was about 8,000 Australian dollars profit in that month. And I was like, okay, it's not as big as my animation business, but this was money again. Like literally, the stock was in the warehouse, they just sent me every month.
That's it.
And well, the direct deposit actually in 2 weeks in month.
You just did the market research, you committed to the product.
Yeah. Innovated the product.
Yeah.
And then I just added another product. Then I expanded into Europe. So within 2 years, I was in 33 countries. And I didn't have any products in any of Amazon's fulfillment centers. In any of my own garages. They were in Amazon fulfillment centers around the world. And it just went straight from China to their fulfillment center, and that was it.
And so I just picked up there. So you back 2011, 2012, you wanted to get really good at it, and you got some coaching on.
Yeah, I bought a course, and then
Yeah. So you committed. You found essentially what we deem as a mentor, someone that could obviously cleanly done that, got the runs on the board,
Yes.
and shown how to do it.
100%.
And so you obviously had the next 5 years were pretty flat out in the Amazon scene, where you started to, I guess, overtake the animation business, etc.
I sold the animation company in 2015. Got really good money for that.
Yeah.
And decided to head to Australia. And then people were saying, how did you do it at Amazon?
Mm.
People kept asking because they knew there was a business there that they could do. They could see it was kind of like eBay, their version.
Yeah.
And it enabled them to sell into America, which for Kiwis and Australians to be able to live here, which is the penthouse suite of the world, in my opinion, in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But to be able to sell it around 20 million Americans, and get paid US dollars every 2 weeks, that's the whole environment. So it was a really compelling offer, and then we started with our education, and now it's 12,000 students.
12,000 students, 45 countries around the world. This global education academy, turning over. And what's today? I think it's 1.3 billion or something.
Our students have done 1.3 billion in sales in Amazon.
Yeah.
And we've done somewhere around 7 million.
Hey, congratulations. So that's it's a 4 or 5 years in essentially, right?
Just enough.
5 years. So it's fantastic. And so there must be, out of the 12,000 students, be a real snapshot of people. But I mean, the pointy end of that, geez, you must be on the Christmas card list. Right at the top, because I'm assuming that out of that 12,000, there'll be a bunch of people, potentially hundreds of those, maybe even into the thousands of those that have got a semi-passive income that's quite substantial.
Yeah, but it's an interesting one. Like if you do the math, because people always say, what is the average student make? I could say that, well, look, let's call it 1.2 billion for 12,000. So that means the average person made $100,000 in sales, right?
Yeah.
But that's actually not how it works. It's the top 10% or so that make most of the money.
Yeah.
Because the vast majority of people buy courses don't do anything with them. they need to start.
Yeah, we see the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. So it's the people who start and stick. It's not easy, right? It sounds easy, but it's not. It's deceptively complex, and there's a real, you've got to have some toughness to do it. And I'll have a chat about that, but like our top student does 25 million US a year, all the way down to people. We've given away, I think, to put it in perspective, I think we've given away about 60 or 70 Rhino awards, which is people doing 100 grand US a month. Yeah, and then it goes down to 50,000 and 25,000 and 10,000 at the award levels. Across all of them.
So let's go back a step here. You explained why you sort of got into Amazon, and I guess the thesis behind that. But why Amazon? Let's look at the big picture here. It's very, you explained well. US market's great. We're going to be around the world. Selling that US market. It's now starting in Australia. We did a post recently, which was great. Around the growth in the last 2.5 years of Amazon here in Australia. I think you mentioned something along the lines of how long it's going to be before it overtakes Harvey Norman, which is what 30-40-year-old retail business, probably one of our 60-year-old retail business, one of our biggest retail businesses here in Australia. Amazon Australia is going to be hot on its tails, right, in the next couple of years.
Well, to put it in perspective, Amazon Australia is twice the size of Kogan is now. And Kogan is 12 years old. So Amazon Australia is 3. Yeah. So they double the size of Kogan, and they're a third the size of Harvey, which is a 60-year-old business. So that's extraordinary. So they went from like 23 million in the first year to 140 million, I think, in the second year, 350 or 380 or something like that. So the rate they're going now, they're $1 billion company inside of 5 years in terms of sales. I don't know that there's any company in Australia that's gone from $0 to $1 billion in 5 years. That's 6 months. So, yes, but that is still, when you put it in comparison to the US, still a small business.
Yeah. So what you would teach at Rival Education for your students would be still focus on the US market.
Yes. Well, to put it in perspective, Amazon do $150 billion a quarter.
Yeah.
So you look at $1 billion in Australia in a year, there's only 250 million.
So someone sitting at home thinking, oh, well, Amazon Australia is still quite new. Is it really new business here? Well, what you guys are talking about is Amazon US, maybe Amazon Europe.
Yeah, Amazon Europe, switch Germany, the UK, massive Japan, it's massive.
Yeah.
And you might be thinking, is it complex? No. You literally source the same product from China, and you print out shipping or create PDFs in the back end of Amazon, and you just they assign a Japanese fulfillment center to you.
Yeah.
They make the PDFs as a PDF thing, right? You just email it to your supplier in China, so send that container to there.
And what's the competitive advantage that really hooked you on Amazon other than seeing all those boxes going into front doors in the States? Was it versus say eBay versus say Alibaba? I guess you could say the same about something like Alibaba in China. Right? What's the competitive advantage or the compelling thing from your standpoint?
Amazon is just scale, right? Yeah. So they are so much bigger than everybody else. They have all the traffic. They have all the search traffic as well. So there's more product search on Amazon than there is on Google. It's the only area of search that is not on Google, which is product search. So people go to Amazon look for product. They're not there to research product. They're there to buy it. Yeah. Right. So Amazon has all the traffic. They are the biggest. They're too big to ignore. If you're not on Amazon, you're missing out massively.
So newsflash, you heard it here first. Believe it or not, Jeff Bezos actually knows what he's doing.
Yeah, as it turns out, yeah.
It's a surprise, right?
I think there's that, but there's the other one is distribution. So it's not just traffic, it's distribution. So what I mean by that is you can sell globally. So a lot of people think I need 10, 15, 100 products to be in business online. That's not true. Like, for example, there's a company, I like whiskey. There's a company called Northern Whiskey Glasses. So these guys invented a whiskey glass. They spent maybe 2 years with a patent attorney and created something unique about the way that it aerates the whiskey, right? That Northern Whiskey glass generates over $1 million a year on Amazon. It's one glass, right? So that's just on Amazon, and that's just on America, right? Not globally, right? So you get that one whiskey glass. Germany and the UK are the same size as America combined. If you just go into Germany, UK, and America, 3 warehouses, actually 2, because from UK distributed to 5 European countries, you're in front of 600 million people a day. So that's 500 million people, one whiskey glass you're out. If it's a unique product that's protected.
Yeah.
So you can spend a year tinkering away in your garage, right? Like our forefathers created a hill source, create something really cool, take it to the world. But when you start thinking about global markets, with something that's truly inventive and unique, you don't need a lot of products. Look at James Dyson. Right? James Dyson's
one or two products.
One or two products. And then he's probably got 12 or something.
Yes.
But amazing. He's just gone into head levels.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's get into this a little more then. So we're talking about, okay, Amazon's a great marketplace. What about someone that's, what product should, where to start now? I'm assuming that's what reliable education is all about, is talking to someone going through the process of product selection, perhaps, or I know you've got some affiliated companies and programs and software, etc., that sort of helps with a lot of that in the background. But what's that process look like? Should someone who's maybe woke up and decided, hey, we've got this great product, I'm going to go and create this product, and find someone trying to create this product for me and use Amazon as a platform, or is it just as easy for someone to go and find something else that they feel like might have some volume around it, kitchen appliance or something like that? Is that the process of filtering through?
Yeah, so I'll run through that. So first of all, I think for the listeners, the important thing, if you're going to sell things on the internet, there's really two ways to do it. One is you go to Amazon, which is called a marketplace, because all the traffic is already there. You don't need to do Facebook marketing, Google marketing, you need to just put it on, and maybe buy some advertising on Amazon, and that's it. You don't want to buy anything else. It's all there.
Yeah.
Then you can go on Shopify or your own e-commerce website, which has some benefits, but there's no traffic. So now you buy all the traffic to come in. And what you got to look for is very, very different. Over here, if you're not in a marketplace, because you have to buy the customer, you need a higher ticket item with a high margin, because it's going to be a cost to acquire a customer. You have to pay based on Google. And also, you're much, much smarter to build an e-commerce company with a recurring product. So just over the road here is HighSmile. So there's two young guys, Nick and Alex. Alex used to live literally next door to me. He's now living each. And they have HighSmile, which is teeth whitening gear, and they put the teeth whitening paste in, and they keep buying the teeth whitening paste to get teeth whitening. Because if you've got, let's say, $100 cost to acquire a customer through Facebook or Google, well, you might end up having to lose $20 to get a customer.
That's right, because you've got the monthly recurring revenue.
When you've got them needing supplements or whatever. Over here, you want to search and arrows to things that are consumable and big. Over on Amazon, not so much. There's hundreds of millions of customers, literally. So you just pop it in there. So the first thing you need is a tool called Guru, which is a disclaimer, we own that company. It's a software tool. There are competitors, but we are one of the best in the world, probably the best in the world, I think, in terms of quality of result. It's basically, you go on Google Chrome and install this piece of software, and when you're on Amazon, just click this button, it tells you what each product on the page is selling or not. So you want to make sure there's traffic so that people are buying that thing. But the other things that you want to look for is, I like to sell things a little bit more expensive. So for example, you don't want to sell things that are like $10. Like Aaron, you might be able to pass us the penguin over there, and I'll just give you an example. I use this when we talks just as a simple example, but like a stuffed penguin does about $13,000 to $15,000 a month on Amazon, and they cost $1 to buy them. And so this fella here is what I'm talking about. Right. The thing with this product is, in China, there is literally hundreds of millions of uni students who are trying to hustle their way out of the lower class to the middle class, right? Or the middle class up. Now, if that product is available for $1 just over the border somewhere in China, and they sell it for $10 on Amazon, there's literally tens of millions of people trying to do that. But because they're only $1. But if you sell, for example, this paper, right? This might cost you $200 and sell for $800, but there's far less people.
So you're creating a barrier to entry, so that's basically any business principle. So you start with a cheap product, if it's a cheap cafe, it's a coffee, whatever, or anyone can sort of get in and start a business. But what we're saying is you're filtering out into the high level one, people aren't going to be so committed to. Maybe there's fewer amount of people who've got access to that cash to be able to do that. So it's a barrier to entry.
It's why Warren Buffett used to invest in airlines. It's very, very hard to get the airline business. But it's an ascension model too. So what I mean by that is, don't make a mistake of going into expensive, patented, complex products from the start. The biggest thing you've got to do when you start,
get some runs on the board.
Start. Go and buy 50 of these on Valley Harbour today.
Learn the principle.
Yes.
learn the principle how it works,
Yes.
and then start to move on.
Yes, the first one is, and the other, like, here's another really important principle. So let's say you compete in this market. You go onto Amazon, it's a beauty contest on Amazon. It's like Tinder for products. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're a dad, right? So you're going to buy this for your little boy or little girl who just wants to grow something. So you type in, start the penguin, up come the first 50 results in break money. Now, you want to look at those 50 results before you look at the price of the reviews or anything, you look at what it looks like. You're going to look at the cutest one, right? So you get the top 20, you print them off on your computer, stick them on the wall, and then you might hire an artist, like a cartoon artist. You can get them on Upwork.com or freelance.com, any of these, and you hire them like $10 an hour out of the Philippines. And say, I want the cutest penguin in the world. Contest, I'll pay 5 hours for nothing. You get 10 of them doing it, and they might make bigger eyes and a fatter belly, or you might put like a little stone in there that says I love you, and then sell 2 of them together.
So you're adjusting the product.
The way it looks.
Yeah.
It's got to look different.
Yeah.
Make one look immobile
Yeah.
or something, because the first hook is like you're putting the bait on the hook, you can drop it in the pool of human bites. They're fish looking around at the different baits.
Yeah.
They can see, oh, look at that one, it's got a pink mohawk, it's got an I love you sign in it. Right now I'm interested. Then they look at the price, then they look at the reviews. So if you just learn this, and I say to people, like, teach in the book, you can literally buy 10 of these right now at Alibaba Express in 10 minutes. Anybody can. Just put in Alibaba Express, start 10 minutes, order 10. Right? Get those 10, get the course, right? So you make these listings set up, take the photos with your phone, and it's list them, and then put them in a box and send them to Amazon. If you do that, a committed person to do that in 1 day, in 1 day they've learned how they can source, export, list, and sell a physical product into a foreign market and get paid back in US dollars. That is an extraordinary achievement. Even if you lose $100 in the process,
It's education.
It's alchemy. You've alchemized an idea and you've turned it into an income.
Yeah.
And you can do it in a matter of a day if you're committed. But most people screw around, fight around, and indecision and fear, and start small where you're
What if it's not perfect?
We have a contest called Go Live. We run with our coaching lives, right?
Yeah.
The rules are you're not allowed to run more than 100 units, and you've only got 100 days to get it done. And we coach them. If they miss a milestone, they're out. But everybody puts in $100 to enter. And so we just gave away the prize, $20,000 in prize money. The winning people were from Sydney, great couple. She had a brain aneurysm 2 days into the contest starting, and she was doing it from the hospital. They listened to us, said they went to a high margin product. They did $44,000 US in sales within 18 days of the program.
Yeah, wow.
But then,
Yeah,
that was
they
just
got it out there. So,
$450 product.
so I want to get into, I guess, yes, the students themselves are coming to a reliable education platform.
Yeah.
The expectations and that. But what I find and what we talk in Navigate Biz a lot about is that if you're going to start a business, or maybe if you're an employee or you're maybe you've been retrenched, or you're just looking for a career change, then you're looking to start a business, you've got to drop that employee mentality. I'm always talking about this transition from employee to employee. It's super important. How do you, this Amazon training, reliable education, how do you pitch this? Is it a business or is it a hobby?
Well, initially, and I know this sort of goes against what you're saying here, we tell people to treat it like a hobby.
Right.
And the reason being, it's not something you can actually do full time from day one. So we teach people as a side hustle.
Yeah.
So it takes the pressure off, and they can do this at night.
Yeah.
And they chip away at it. It's still a business. You've got to treat it like a business, but you started as a side hustle, so that you can fit it in around what you're currently doing, which is one of the reasons people love it, is because they can do it around what they're currently doing. And it's sort of like a segue out. But the people who do well absolutely treat it like a business. And you've got to understand, with business, the biggest thing that people struggle with is going without. They're used to getting paid for that.
The thing is and just sort of supporting what you're saying there, is you go and get a penguin here, and you might not sell, you might not make any income for that next month, for example, before anyone starts to love your penguin.
Yeah.
But starting any business from scratch is very much the same way. There is no guarantee that the market is going to walk through that front door or jump online and buy anything. And so it's really super important. I jumped online, looked at some of the reviews of what some of the expectations of people who have gone and done some of these online courses are. And you've really got to shift that expectation from being, from employee mentality where, hey, I've done my bit. Adam said do this, and we get on there, and just wait for it all to happen. There's more to it.
You're not going to
You've
retire.
got to shift. No, all one table. But so the reality is hey, you've got to find the right vehicle. Talk about getting the right vehicle, whether that be vacuum cleaners, photocopiers, penguins, whatever it is. Find a vehicle where you can shift your own destiny. Find that vehicle, but behind that, you also need a business education.
Yes.
You need to understand that running this penguin here, getting those out in the market, is a business. And therefore, that takes a different mentality. Spending 8 hours a day doing Mr. Penguin reading online is not necessarily going to guarantee the income. But you need to start to get your cash flow forecasts in place. Have I got enough money back in behind, or I've got access? You want to be owner, but have you got access to the cash that can support you to that business and get the runway?
100%. And it should be treated with the same sincerity as buying a house. Because when I went and toured with Robert Kiyosaki, right, Robert was standing backstage when I had people on stage in front of 3,000 people and said, I can see some of you guys laughing, right? Going, is this guy for real? This little penguin, as I said, does $12,000 a month US. Now let's say it's making on 20% profit, which is a little bit higher, let's say it's true. So that's $2,400 US a month. That's $3,000 a month. Now that's the equivalent of a paid off residential property making $750 a week rent. Paid off if you didn't have a mortgage of this little guy, and that might take you. I always say to people, if you're doing a side hustle, expect to lose money in the first year, break even in the second, and make money in the third. And then people go, okay. And it's actually proven that people expect it to be hard, fare much better than the averages. Just across the road here, we had it in here yesterday, the MX store, right? So MX store is right outside of their student line in the Amazon side. But these guys started off with $200,000 investment in starting their business, and they compounded. Now they have this massive facility over there 10 years later, doing tens of millions of dollars a year. They just never took any money out, and they never took outside investment. But they were prepared to go without. They lived off ramen for 3 years, and now they've got this beast of a business because they just did it out.
And that's the sacrifice, right?
So it's investing in without expectation of giving return. It's easy to hear it when you're sitting here watching on Facebook or YouTube, wherever, but to actually live it. Like Zon Guru, the company that I started with John, I mentioned it before. I remember we went out and got, it's like $50 a month for software, right? We got 10 customers, we had $500 a month in income, and we had $15,000 a month in development costs. So it was a question of the first year, it was how much money are you losing now? It wasn't how much you're making. And I'd say, great news, we're only losing $3,000 a month now. Now we're losing
closer.
We're getting closer. And I remember celebrating the day we stopped losing money. And we're about to raise money in that business at a $28 million valuation. But we started the first, I didn't take any money out in 3 years, not a dime. And every single dollar went back in, and it was our thing that we did. And just
but that's a lesson through years, like decades for you going through the business. Obviously, in 23, you probably wouldn't be necessarily making that sacrifice. But certainly, I just think it's such an important thing. If you're looking, doesn't matter whether whether it's an online business, any business that you've got, that you've got to be prepared that to get to that next place, you're gonna have to sacrifice something. And I agree with you. 2 to 3 year period, you've really got to talk about for that. Much like yourself, we're starting in businesses where taking the haircuts and to actually get that next one going. And so I think it's really important to be able to, I want to talk about the demographic, who's the right people going, and what the expectation should be, is that no matter what kind of business it's looking at, whether it's an online one, you've just got to be prepared to really take that.
It's a mindset that runs beyond getting business profitable. If you want to be truly wealthy, even when the business is profitable, then you start investing all the profits into real estate and stocks. Or people. But you keep reinvesting in the business. Like I was driving a Holden Captiva. I bought one of it from the States. I was already in from America. I bought a $25,000 used Holden Captiva, which was 3 years old at the time. I still drive it today. I still drive it because all the money that I make from my business is my invest. And now, at the age of 47, now I don't have to work again in any business because of the income of the property. But I've become addicted to the game of compounding money and growing it. That's the game. So, and I've got it back right. I didn't buy it. I bought a fancy car on the way, but it wasn't until I had a fancy property to pay for it, until then it was holding out there was all right.
Yeah. So going the expectation, hey, it's invariably, I'm sure this, like with any business, is not an overnight. I'm sure you're going to have one out of 12,000 or 120 out of 12,000 maybe that just don't roll straight away. But it's a journey, it's a process, it's a learning. Obviously, global education would be, you've got to look at like any other education. Like you pay to go to university, pay to go to TAFE, pay to whatever it is, you've got to pay to get that education. Now, do you, aside from just the online courses, you've got mentoring that goes along with that?
Yeah, so we have two programs. When it comes to Amazon, and we also have a Shopify program that's just launching. It's about $3,000 Australian, depending on what you buy. About $3,000 Australian for the online program and access to our community of 12,000 students around the world to support you.
Yeah.
And then various events that we run just for students. If you want to get fast tracking it, you can join our Platinum program, which is about $20,000 for a year. But then we give you access to a panel of coaches for one-on-one coaching every month.
Yeah.
They help you with product selection, they help you. They just be a sanity check at the moment that you need it. We have private events for our Platinums. Put it this way: of all the Rhino winners, which is a $100,000 a month award, 74% come from our Platinum clients, and our Platinum clients only represent 5% of our full clients.
Yeah.
So 5% of the people, 74% of the
Yeah.
awards
So,
come from those clients.
the more you commit, the more money you invest in your education, the greater chance you've got.
Well, look, at the end of the day, when people say expensive, education is expensive, I'm like, percent, I think it's cost.
Yeah.
So in business, making mistakes can be really expensive. And in the context of normal business, like I see people flinch at $3,000 to buy an online course, and I'm like, dude, I spent $3,000 to get an opinion on something from my lawyer for 3 or 4, maybe 5 hours of his advice.
Yeah.
Just it's nothing to pay $3,000 for legal advice on one specific little tiny point. So people need to change their mindset about education, and like I've seen the cost of university education on like $3,000. It doesn't even pay you one term. This is showing you how to create a completely different financial future.
Yeah.
So you just got to see it as the first place to invest in.
Look, and hey, I would say, these words, these or this, whatever it is on Amazon or even on Shopify platform, whatever it is, it's a business. In my view, it's a business. So you've got to look at what the costs are to start up any other kind of business. Now, maybe you're at a situation where you are looking to start a business. What would you be looking to invest in any other kind of business, a bricks and mortar business, whether that be a cafe or a franchise, something like that? How much would you typically? And I would say, my experience is most small businesses in Australia would be $50,000 to $300,000 to get in that bracket, right? And that's 62% of all businesses in Australia are under $200,000 a year in turnover and are owner-operators. A horrible statistic. Now, those people have paid $50,000 to about $300,000 to get into that. Now, so what we're going to do is say, well, there's $3,000 to maybe $20,000 on the upside. Is that an expensive price to pay to start a business?
Well, it's education. Then you've got the inventory piece, and you depending on where you want to start, like, you 10 to 100,000 inventory, depending on how seriously you want to do it.
But is there a dropshipping component, or is that purely if you go Shopify?
That's on Shopify.
Yeah.
So Shopify is where you can actually start with no inventory investment, and that can be a great way for people to go. There are some real advantages of Shopify too. A lot of our students will support both programs, because if you're going to source a product, let's say it's penguin, for Amazon, you may as well have your own website as well and learn that.
Yeah.
But as the downside is, there's not a lot of recurring business here on penguins. But Shopify is a great option as well. That's a really hot market as well.
Yeah. So, so there is an opportunity for them to go hand in hand between Amazon, the Amazon platform. Is there advertising involved in Amazon? If you're on the Amazon marketplace as well, like you can get yourself further up the ranks.
You can pay to advertise on day one from day one. So that's the advantage as well, having a higher ticket price product.
Yeah.
So for example, let's say you get a product for $200, and you bought it for 40 out of China, right? Which is not a reasonable markup in that world. But you really want 5 to 7 times what you're paying in China for it, because China or Taiwan, whatever. The retail price. I know that seems like a huge markup, but you need that to have margin at the end of the day. So if you've got a product that's $200, costing you 40, it means you've got $160 there, right? that you could spend before you get all this. There are other costs and stuff, so it might be 160, let's call it 100, right?
Yeah.
So you got $100 of marketing money which you could spend. So that's a real advantage in that the cost per click for a $200 item versus this bandwidth is actually not different. In some cases it's less because there's less competition.
Yeah, so that
So the click is cheaper, there's less people trying to buy it, so conversion rate's higher.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of advantages in doing
So that comes back down probably to how much people can afford to have in inventory. That would it be fair to say the product selection be around how much available cash you've got for your inventory?
The downside of this business, of this is your money, right? So these little soldiers go off to war and bring home the money back. But if you don't have any soldiers at war, you don't have any money back to come home. So your income is in direct proportion to the amount of capital that you have in play. And the name of the game is to just turn your capital over as quickly as possible at a return. So you're turning it over at 20% every 4 months. That means you're compounding your money at 20% 3 times a year, which is probably compounded 80 or 90% return on your money a year.
Yeah.
Where in the world can you get that outside of business? You can't.
No, and that's a great analogy because in any business you would be looking to try and get that sort of 3 times stock turnover from your inventory.
Right.
And so we'll stand to reason we've got these all stacked in boxes somewhere at Amazon and now so you're looking at three stock turns. So that comes back down to how many of them do you need to sell to get the revenue or get the profitability that you want, and then work out, okay, well, look, if I want that, I can't sell an empty shelf, so you've got to have them there if you want to get this, this turnover. But then I suppose what you want to do is get a market sample, get some out there. People, are they actually selling? Is it a hot product? And that's why you got software.
But the key is, you've just got to price up the risk. And what I mean is, there's 2 games to play in Amazon. One has to be the cheapest thing in the shop. You don't want to be in that game because there's always going to be a market for the cheapest thing on Amazon. But these are people that have lots of money that are happy to make 8% return. Well, if I'm going to get 8% return, I'm not going to put it in business. Why would I? It's too risky. It's too risky an environment. 8%. I'll put it in commercial property. Right? Like bricks and mortar, and I know I'm probably going to get 10. Right? I personally would do this for less than 20. Right? I reckon 20% risk premium is the minimum. And so what I like to do is create unique products that are, not to start with, just sell them and experience it, right? Just get a feel for it.
Year 1, year 2, learning.
By year 2, you'll start to really crack on with it. And then year 3, you start banking. Year 4, you start cranking. Year 5, you start cranking. And that's what you're doing.
It's a process.
It's a process, right? So that's what I like to do. Get a higher margin, more expensive yield. You learn that confidence is built by starting with cheap and small and easy.
Okay, so back to, hey, we understand people that are spending more on the education, they're going to get better at it, going to get better results. But is there anything else you see in the demographic of your students? 12,000 students worldwide. You must be starting. Is there a pattern there that some people that are doing better than others, like people that have owned businesses before, perhaps, or is there a pattern?
Yeah, people who are our average what we call avatar is their mid-40s. They're married, got a couple of kids usually, and they're out of their 20s and early 30s where they're sort of still at school of life. They've had their ass handed to them a couple of times. So they're wary, they're a little bit cynical, maybe a little bit burnt, but they're also ambitious still. So they're nobody's fool, so that's our clientele. They can smell bullshit a mile away. And they're prepared to work, they're prepared to be a bit patient, and they understand the importance of getting around the right people, because when you have something bad happen, and it will happen, but what if something goes wrong? I said, not what if, when? It will happen multiple times. When I was young, I was at boxing lessons, and I was really cautious, and the coach came and punched me in the face a couple of times and said, see, there it is, that's a punch in the face, that's all it is, now are you dead? No, now let's get on with it. From that moment, I was like, oh wow, okay, I'm into this now, because I wasn't afraid to punch. So get in there, but people have a go, and they hang out with others, or they have people in their circle that support them. You've got to be in that network, that mastermind, and that's where our funding program, coaching program is so good, because they're a private group, and these people have each put in 20 grand to play, so you know these people are committed. But there's also lots of those in our other group as well, our main group. It's just leaning into that community, because being an entrepreneur is psychotic. When you're jumping off a cliff with no plane, you've got to build on the way down. So you need other psychotic death pilots around you. So that's why you're doing the right thing, you know, because otherwise
It's that support mechanism. Otherwise, you're just getting everybody poo-pooing and doing.
Yeah.
And, hey, no, you can put that resistance up for a bit, but if you're subjected to that month in, month out, year upon year, it's eventually going to burn down.
The office is that. Show me the average of 5 people you spend most time with, and that's it.
Absolutely. Any pitfalls? Someone going into this, like character pitfalls or experience pitfalls that you should be looking at before someone comes in commits. So your advised him.
Yeah, people who expect to hand over $3,000 for a course to get rich, we're not people. People expect it to be easy, we're not people. Nothing good's easy, right? People who are impatient, people who are not teachable or are not willing to be objective, like lack of objectivity is really, really, they fall in love with their thing. They think it's a game-changing idea, instead of people who are kind of data-driven, that are just prepared to be objective, and dispassionate. Like when you go to Amazon, the great thing is, this could be created by a 12-year-old, or it could be or it could be created by a 90-year-old. It could be any race, any sex, any gender, any persuasion, right? It doesn't matter. It's about the product. It's about what you bring to market. So we've got a 15-year-old kid who did $45,000 US a month while he's at school doing this. So it's all about the product, right? So don't take it so personally. Some people when it like, oh my God, I'm such a loser, and all this stuff comes up in their tongue. No, you just took the wrong product. The same, like I always say when I went to America, I started a flight center, like a flight simulation company on Hollywood Boulevard, and I started an animation company. That one went down in flames, like I lost all my money in the flight simulator business because of assumptions that I assumed, which I was wrong on. And this one became a multi-million-dollar business. Same entrepreneur, same block on the same street, doing two different things. My animation studio was on Sunset Boulevard. My flight simulator was on Hollywood Boulevard. At the same time, the same environment. One failed, one succeeded. It's not personal.
Just got to keep pushing. It's just the market. Man.
It's the
market doesn't know you nothing. Okay, so just you're involved in a couple of charities. Just want to touch on that. I know there's a give back there, I mean, how much of that is what drives you now? Like, you much like myself, hey, it's sort of beyond just coming to make a dollar the next day. How much of those charities are you supporting? Is that a drive? What are the other things that actually drive you? I guess beyond making a dollar, about $3,000 of course, there must be some stuff.
I genuinely love teaching. Like I genuinely enjoy it. So like when I go on the new slide and new act for coaching, I go on there and for the last week I've been teaching commercial property. These people pay me $20 a month. Right? And I go live and I coach. Right? So for $20 a month, it's not going to change my life, right? But I love doing it. I get all these comments, people going, oh my God, nobody's ever unpacked this. So first of all, I genuinely get a kick out of that. I do love the charity program. So we have paired up right at the beginning with the John Fawcett Foundation, which is an organisation founded by an Australian who passed away last year, John Fawcett, and he spent the second half of his life committed to healing blind people in Indonesia suffering cataract. There's 4 million blind people out there from cataract. And so I got involved with him early on. I flew over there, saw John, saw the work they were doing, and we became sympathetic force to that. And 2 years ago, at one of our summits, we raised $250,000, $150 from the audience, and my business partner John and I put in $100,000. And then we bought this mobile eye surgery clinic, which is doing surgeries every day now. We do 50,000 surgeries in this lifetime, which give feedback to eyesight kids and grandparents. And it also liberates the carer. So it's 2 people that are liberated every time the surgery is done. We've now done tens of thousands of surgeries. As a result, we take our students up there. So a few times a year, if they put a $1,000 donation to the John Fawcett Foundation and show us the receipt, we will pay for their bus and hotel and food, and we'll take them on a tour for 4 days where we meet them in Bali and we drive them to a village, we host them, we pay for everything, and we meet the people who they just pay for their eyesight back and it changes them.
Yeah. So that's the give back through reliable education there. I see there was you've done something like 3,000 cataract surgeries.
Yeah,
more. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and the truck will be there doing thousands every year. So,
and I assume outside that these surgeries would not happen for those people. Right?
No,
don't have to go
it's
through
all
that.
free because of what we do.
Yeah.
So that's students and us. So yeah, we're one of their biggest donors, and we love that work. It's just so good. When you have a bad day, if you get a bad day, and you're sitting there crying into your beautiful home and the beach outside, at least you can't see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And microloans through Kiva.
Yes.
Did I say that right? Kiva.
Yeah, so we partner with Kiva from day one as well. So every course we sell, we do an interest-free microloan to an entrepreneur in a third world country.
Yeah.
We've now done 12,000 loans out in the market. So we give like, I think it's $25 along with up to 20 other people to one entrepreneur. And that entrepreneur pays it back interest-free, and the loan comes back in with every loan they again. Rather than other, because it keeps them money in perpetuity. And we've got 12,000 loans on our balance sheet now, which is an asset to our company, but it's just sitting there growing.
Look, I think it's fantastic what you're doing with that, because hey, most people, I don't think, have a feel for how easy it is for us to get access money in this country, any first world country around the world, to go and start a business. How easy it is now. If you think some of the third world countries, what's some of the countries that you're providing these loans in?
We've done like 78 countries, so we've done everywhere. I think it's actually more than that. Ethiopia, Botswana, all through Africa, and
not just rocking up to ANZ saying, "Hey, I want a business loan," and those ones. So,
no, these people go to a local organiser on the ground, a key representative who's working for free.
Yeah.
They put the case forward, they take photos what they want. So it might be 8 women in Kenya who want to start a fruit vegetable store, or a guy up in Thailand who needs to buy a motorbike, or a farmer in the Middle East who needs to buy goats.
Yeah.
And we will fund it. And there's a photo of farming goats and everything wants to buy, and then they pay that industry, and then the money gets paid back to us, and then we just revert it to them.
Fantastic.
So out of what's interesting, we've only had less than 2% default rate, and usually it's people go to social media which is so sad, but that's what it usually is. And we've lent about 80% of the time to people. So that the high repayment rate, the default rate is lower to those loans here in the West.
Yeah.
And they're probably it's a matter of time.
Absolutely. Okay, so now if people want to contact you, reliable.education.
Yes.
And
no.com, but it's just www.
reliable.education. Now, also Adam Hudson official, not the non-official,
Yeah.
the official at Adam.
Instagram,
All social platforms, I'm sure. Right?
Yeah.
And also Uspire. Maybe should we just chat about that just for a moment? As an alternative, I guess, for people looking to start a business. You've got some information in particular areas that.
If you're a coach watching this, it's working for you. So basically, it's an app that is exactly like Instagram Live, except people pay to follow you.
Yeah.
So I have 1,700 people on my channel paying every month, $25 a month, and I go live Monday to Friday, and you get notified as soon as I'm live, and then I coach you. So that if you want to do it as a coach, you can do it. It's an 80-20 split, where the coach keeps 80, and you just like 20 to pay for the streaming or back end, and you get front, and just go to uspire.com.
And what other projects are on at the moment there? You got your youth.
Yeah, we've got a young entrepreneurs course coming out shortly through Reliable Education. We've got our, well, it's actually out. We've got our Shopify program. I've got a Zon Guru, which, as I mentioned before, is now one of the world's leading Amazon software companies. We're developing a product called Secure Course, which is a project we're doing with some of our students to teach them how to build a software product. We also have a course called Software School, which will teach them how to build their own software company, like Uspire or whatever. We have a lot going on, but it's fun.
So in summary here, just going through, you need to pick your vehicle, whether that's a bricks and mortar business or an online business, as we've chatted about here today. You need to get educated around business to be able to run. It doesn't matter whether it's online or bricks and mortar, whatever type of business, you've got to get educated in business. Make sure that you understand what it takes to run a business, and I always talk about the persona. Have you got the persona for it? Now that can change, you can develop that, but it is a key fundamental. And then make sure that you've got a mentor behind it. Someone like Adam there that's gone through run the race before and can take you through some of those pitfalls that are coming through, and obviously be in your corner, right? That's what you want from me. Someone not only that you can aspire to, obviously get to that place, but that connection comes through, make sure you put that right information down.
Networking absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, it's been a pleasure, Adam. Hey, I really appreciate it, mate. Appreciate the time. Thanks so much. We'll wrap it up.
Guys.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Awesome. Is Facebook over there? Hey, Facebook?
That's good.
Oh, awesome. It's going down.
I think it was probably lower than this one.